Start now. Hey guys, welcome to Savvy Sesh. I'm Leigh McKechnie, and this week I am chatting to Leigh Hodgkins from Loveleigh's Cakery up in Cairns. Hi Leigh.
Hi.
How you going?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
How's Cairns at the moment? I bet you it's nice and warm.
It's like, well, I'm like right next to the door, so I can see out. That's one of the things I love about my kitchen. And it's a stunning day today. It's so beautiful. I think it even got down to 17 degrees last night, which is unheard of. I know. We were like, do we need jumpers? We don't know what to do. Someone turned the aircon off. Oh, wait, it's not on. It was really weird. We get used to it.
That's amazing. So how did you get into cakes?
I got into cakes completely accidentally. It's a really weird story, but anyway. Years and years ago, I ran for city council. I lost, I came second, but I ran with no budget. So that meant that I had to spend a lot of time door knocking everybody's house. And what I found was that everybody wanted, on this side of town where I am, it's a lot of really young families with babies. It's sort of a good place to buy your first home, this kind of side of town. So, but everybody had really big fences and really big dogs, so they had nowhere to meet. So I decided when I lost that I was going to open a cafe that was going to welcome everybody in the community, so everyone could meet up, mothers groups could come. There was a play area. There was going to be a indoor permanent market stalls for local artisans, all sorts of things. And I was going to do all the savoury food. And I hired, or I became business partners with a man who made amazing cakes and cupcakes. And he was huge. He was hugely famous. And because I had run for council, we got a bit of media traction and it was all going really nicely. And then about 12 days before we opened, he took off. He moved to Sydney. He said, I don't like children. I don't want to be around this place. I'm going. And off he went. So I had to, because everyone was expecting cupcakes, I had to teach myself how to make a cupcake. I didn't know what I was doing. You should have seen them. Oh my gosh, they looked so bad. But they were delicious. So it became a really big deal and everybody loved the cupcakes. We'd have a line up at the front door waiting for us to open and the cupcakes to be out. It was huge. It was huge, huge, huge. But it took me another probably 2 years before I was kind of ready to start actually making a cake. And I made one and it's pretty bad. It was one of those rosette cakes. You know, it was a rainbow rosette cake. It was pretty tragic. Covered it in glitter because glitter makes everything okay. And it was a huge hit. And so that's where it sort of started. And then anybody that knows me knows that I'm autistic and I have 3 children who are also autistic. And school was not a good environment for them at that time. And I wasn't home because I was at the cafe making cupcakes all day. So I ended up closing the cafe and moving cakes home so I could be here for the kids and support them better while they were at school. And I homeschooled one, took one of them out of school and did all of that sort of stuff. So it's a really kind of weird way. My very first cupcake I ever made in my whole life, I sold. And I know that that's a really unusual thing to do. Mostly people get a, you know, everything else happens first and then the selling comes at the end. But for me, I was selling ugly stuff long before I turned it into something pretty. It was delicious though.
It's an amazing story. Wow.
It's a weird story. It's just such a strange story.
Good. Like it shows that you just had get up and go in you know, and you just do it. Sometimes you just got to not overthink it and just do it. So
that is so true. And I've always loved sweets, so that helped. And also I've always had a real fascination with food and flavors and, you know, the way they balance each other and things like that. So I had such good fun playing with flavor because cupcakes are the thing. I just feel like with cupcakes, we tend to be more experimental with flavors and the way that we, you know, the way that we present them, everything. Cupcakes are sort of where new cake designs stem from. They start with a cupcake and then we turn them into a cake. And I feel like it was a really good entry into caking because I could spend a lot of time perfecting the recipes. you know, before I worried about buying piping tips. I didn't even own piping tips. Oh my God, that was so ugly. That was so bad.
And so obviously now you've grown into a business and your cakes are amazing. I was just scrolling on your Instagram feed before and I cannot pick a favourite. Oh, actually I can. Probably the Starry Nights one is my favourite thing that I have seen of yours. It's amazing. But what is your favourite part about what you do now?
There's a lot of, there's so many things about what I love, about what I do that I love. I think it's really hard to sort of break it down because I feel like cake making it's the only thing that I have found personally that engages all of your senses at once. So you've got taste, smell, touch, you know, you can hear the sounds of baking, you know, things are popping, things are doing whatever they're doing. It's just, it's like a whole body experience making cake because you've got every single step of the process is equally as important. There are no sort of bits that you sort of like, well, okay, well, you know, it's extra important that I make the outside of this look good. Well, if the outside looks good and the inside tastes like a dog's breakfast, it's no good to anyone. And the opposite is also true. Where, you know, if the inside is amazing and the outside's a bit raggedy, you're still going to sell it and people will still come back for more because flavour is the most important part. But having the outside, every time you perfect a skill, just one, a tiny one, it just gives you so much in, you know, you just get so excited. You sort of feel like you've unlocked something. I can imagine now teenagers playing computer games and they get to the next level. I feel like that's how you feel, like you've just beat the boss and now you've got straight sides or a sharp edge or whatever it is. You know, I think probably though the reason that cakes have still enthralled me after all this time, and with, you know, with all of the other stuff in my life, the reason that it's still one of my large focuses is because you're never going to get to a point where you've learnt everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's just when you think you've got that nailed, the unicorn cake, you're like, yep, I've smashed out 5 unicorn cakes this week. They're all looking gorge. The rules change.
Yeah.
And then
you'll probably never make another unicorn again.
Yes, exactly right. So, you know, now we're all making fairy doors and mushrooms. So it's constantly evolving, and that we get to be part of that evolution is kind of really amazing. Like I will make a cake and every now and again, it doesn't happen with all my cakes, obviously, but every now and again, one of my cakes someone will just pick something off it and it will start gaining momentum out there. And I can see my influence in what other people are making. And it's a really special thing to sort of go, you know what, they are nailing it, but I can see where I have influenced that. And that is such a cool thing. You know, you never, ever imagine when you're making ugly cupcakes, you never imagine ever that you're going to get to a day when you're going to Google, you know, dinosaur number cake and your cake will be first on the Google list.
Yeah.
Like, what? How did that happen?
Or in a cake group on Facebook when someone is using your cake as, I need to make this in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah,
and you go, that's my cake.
Their inspiration. You're like, oh. And I get, you know, behind the scenes, because I think for a lot of us who have, I don't have like a huge following, but I have a decent following. And for a lot of us, we get a lot of messages from new cake makers, beginners, people who are, you know, or if they've been making it a while, but they're trying a new technique that they've seen you do. They message you often, and we're often having conversations behind the scenes about, okay, so this is what you need to do. That's the product that I use there. This is how long it'll take you. You can make that in advance. You need to make that on the day, not just on public Facebook pages and on our Insta pages. You know, it's happening behind the scenes. These conversations are constantly happening. And then they get so excited when they send you the picture of their creation after, you know, 400 chats with you. And you think, you know what, I helped them, but they did it. You know, that was their journey. It was, and when I was beginning, I didn't have that. There wasn't so much a cake community to engage with back then. I mean, they were there, but when you first start caking, quite often a lot of the cakers that you look to have got, you know, hundreds of thousands of followers. You wouldn't dream of sending them a DM on Instagram to ask them, you know, how did you do that thing?
Yeah. I don't think did when I started.
No, well, I just feel like it's a more generous sort of environment now, and we're all happy to share because no one is our competition, because no one has got my imagination. No one has, and that's the part that sets me apart from everyone else. You can learn everything that I have ever learned. I can teach you every single thing I have ever picked up along the way. And you can replicate a cake I've already made, but you won't know what my next cake is going to be. And I won't know what yours is.
Yeah. Someone actually said to me, you know, cake decorating is like handwriting. We could all write the same sentence and it's always going to look different to the next person.
That's exactly right. Yes, yes.
So,
that's
yeah,
right.
we could make the same exact design and it's going to look completely different, which is...
That's so right. Yeah, it's like Chinese whispers sometimes too. You start off with one idea and it evolves as it goes through. Different cakers have their own spin on it, and then you've ended up with a whole new technique that no one thought of when they made the first one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. It's just, I feel like it's just endlessly interesting, and I have never ever strayed from buttercream either. You know, I've used the same buttercream recipe from day one till today. I've tweaked it obviously along the way for our conditions and things as I've made it into cakes rather than cupcakes. But I've never ever covered a cake in ganache or fondant. I've never used either. And I'm still always learning something new. You know, you don't have to go far to come up, you know, to be fascinated.
Which leads me to my next question for you, because I know as soon as the weather turns hot here in Sydney, people are just up in arms.
Hot in Sydney? Who are you kidding?
No, imagine.
That's not a thing.
What are your top tips for buttercream in humid conditions, hot conditions, over 30-degree conditions? Give it to us.
All right, so I will tell you that there is a vast difference between hot and humid. And you would know this in Sydney as well as anywhere else in Australia. It can be a really humid day and it can be cold. And your cake is not going to behave the same way as it would if it was 35 degrees and dry heat. So here I've got the fabulous benefit of both. I do find that as the seasons change, I have to change my buttercream slightly because, you know, my butter starts going hard and things, you know, things that I don't really factor in summer. But there are some tips. Firstly, always, and I don't care what the weather's like, always use butter when you're making, okay, so I'm going to just say it about ABC because that's what I make. There's no egg in this. But I always use butter that is slightly soft but still quite firm when I'm making my buttercream. So it's got to break up a little bit in the mix, and I put it in whole blocks. So this is how I make my buttercream. All right, I'm going to give away all my secrets. I put it in my butter and my icing sugar and my vanilla at the same time, right at the beginning. So I don't whip the butter and then add this and then add that and then, because if I do that, I'm going to get soup because it's going to be whipping for far too long, and I'm literally going to get sloppy goo that I'm going to have to refrigerate overnight and try and make it into something the next day. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but anyone who has made buttercream regularly will know that if you overbeat your buttercream, the sugar actually recrystallizes into larger crystals. The icing sugar will actually turn into clumps rather than, you know, fine grit. And we don't want fine grit, but we definitely don't want clumps. So there is a fine line between, you know, letting it go for 15 minutes and turning it into something unusable. So I use quite firm butter. I throw it in. I add my icing sugar. I use a special brand of icing sugar. It's the only one I have found that I can whip, and it takes the grit out, but it's expensive. I don't care. It works. And I add a ton of vanilla. I don't add any other liquid, no milk, no cream, nothing else, because I'm in the tropics. Anything gets a whiff of, you know, fresh dairy and it's going to go moldy like within, you know, do you know what I mean? So I'm very careful about my liquid additions. I use my vanilla in the same way that other people would use milk.
Right, okay.
So I add extra vanilla. So mine is quite vanilla-y, but I also add less icing sugar. So that counteracts that. But I find that if I add it all, so I do mix my butter for like until it's not full clumps, so that it's sort of softish, and then I add my icing sugar. I don't sort of really chuck it in all at once, but pretty much all goes in at once. And then I wait until, but anyway, so that's how I make my buttercream, which is the standard ABC. There's nothing fancy about it. That I do tweak the numbers and percentages of everything. But the top tips I have for working with humidity, for example, is make sure your fridge is not a humid fridge. Never ever use a commercial fridge, because those things make everything sweat. And if you're taking a sweaty cake into a sweaty situation, it's just going to turn to, it's not good. Let's just say it's not good. But I highly recommend using the refrigerator often and always. I recommend looking up Yenna's Way's cake fridges that he makes, the out of the cardboard. Have you seen those?
Yes,
so, I would explain it, but you can Google it. It's a brilliant technique, and it's the only way that anything can travel in cans. I refrigerate, so I crumb coat my cakes straight out of the oven. Like they not straight. They come out of the oven, I cool them down on racks, I level them, I crumb coat them. They don't sit, they don't rest. I don't make mud cake. So nothing is required I don't need anything to mature. I don't make sponge. Mine's sort of in between most of my cakes anyway. Yeah. So I do that, and then I let them, after the crumb coat, I let it be in the fridge overnight. So it's cold all the way into the middle of the cake. And then I do the outside of the cake on the day of collection. I always do it like 2 hours before they're going to pick it up, because I'm a nutcase. But I do the outside, do all the decorations back in the fridge. It stays in there until it's ready to go out the door. But I think like anywhere else, the most important things are make sure your car air conditioned, make sure it's flat on the floor in the car and not somewhere that it's likely to tip or do anything funny. If it's got to travel more than half an hour, put it in one of those refrigerated homemade boxes. And lastly, when it gets to the other end, it goes straight back in a fridge. So if it's going from my fridge into a box, into a cold car, and then it's traveling to the venue or to someone's house and going straight back into a refrigerated whatever, it shouldn't matter what the weather's like. It shouldn't matter where you live. It should come out exactly the same no matter what. So I think that that's vital. Yeah. Transport is everything. The amount of people that will say to you sometimes, can I stop on the way and just pick up the balloons? Or no. But yeah, I think it's the same for all of us, really. But yeah.
It is. It really is. And it's funny to hear it, like someone else say it too sometimes. Like it's just, it's funny. So is there anything else that obviously you've talked about never ending learning. Is there anywhere else that you want to take your business, that you want to do with it?
This is an interesting, okay, so I am a bit strange. And so my journey has been odd, and it's not going to turn into a normal journey at any point, I don't think. About 3 years ago, I opened a shop. Actually, it was 3 years ago. I opened a shop because working from home got too busy. You all know that I make 100 cakes a week. Not really, but a lot. And it was starting to bother me that people were walking up my driveway on a Sunday night to order a cake just randomly. Because everyone knew that I was the cake person. Other cake stores would send people to me, like just straight to my house. So it became a lot, and I wasn't finding it very easy to separate cake life from home life. It was starting to infiltrate my whole world. So I decided to open a little cake shop. So I went and got a lease and opened a little cake shop, and we had that for 2 years, and then COVID came, and I closed it. And I closed it temporarily because we were all in lockdown and it was the right thing to do. And the plan was to go back in July of that same year to, redo it. And what I found was that no one was detouring anymore. People had stopped doing a detour for a cupcake. They were getting in the car. They already had a plan. They knew where they were going. They weren't stopping or slowing down for anything. So we would fill the whole front fridge with cupcakes and cake and no one would turn up. But the books were full. The diary was full. So there were still lots of orders. We just didn't have those incidental, you know, people popping in, because where the shop was, you had to detour to it. It wasn't, you know, on a main thoroughfare. And also what I found, because I still kept doing cakes, just ISO ones, you know, and we did drop off with no contact and all that stuff. What I found was that my cakes got a hell of a lot better because I didn't have that. So the shop, turns out, was way too popular. It was huge. We had lineups going, you know, out the door and around the corners every morning and stuff. And I can't cake like that. My cakes were starting to look generic. I was starting to look at the cake I'd made before to see if I could use the same technique on the cake I was doing next. I was starting to compete with local cake businesses that are in shopping centres, you know, considering them, you know, my competition. So I was starting to mass produce and you could tell. And no one else could tell. Everyone else was like, your cakes still look amazing. And I was like, oh, but they don't. There was this, you know what I mean? There was like a niggle of me sort of thinking, I just didn't have enough time. Okay, so this is my favourite part of making a cake. I don't know if it's the same for you. But you make a cake, you take 400 photos. If someone stole my phone, they'd never know I had kids. It's just cake photo after cake photo after cake photo. So you take 1,000 photos and then I go and sit down and I look at the photos and I really examine them. And then I'm like, do you know what? This cake is missing something. And then I come back in here, get the cake out of the fridge, put it back where the photo thing is and tweak it. So I'm like, add something, remove something, change something, do whatever. The other day I fully re-iced a whole cake and it was going to be picked up in 15 minutes, but I didn't love it. So I was like, I'm doing it. And I did. And you don't have that luxury when you open a store and there are people coming, you know, every hour to pick up a cake and you're the only one who decorates. So there's, you know, it's a lot of pressure and you don't have that kind of, you can't take that step back and take another look at the cake. And even if you don't tweak it, that step back is really, really important for you to go, I did that, like I made that. If it's a step back and you're doing a dance, great. If it's a step back and you're going, it's equally as important to sort of give the cake respect, I guess, that, you know, I made that, that's a thing, and it's going to go out the door and I'm happy. I've looked at it twice. I know that it's the best work that I'm going to do today on this cake. And I didn't have that. So I made the decision to sell the shop. And I did. I sold, not the name, obviously, but I sold all the equipment inside to a catering company and they took it on. I have zero regrets. None. I love working from home. I love the personalization. I love that I can spend ages talking crap to, you know, whoever walks in the door because I'm a chatterbox. I don't know if you've noticed, but, you know, I just love all that. So where am I going from here? I think just want to learn more things, you know?
Yeah.
I don't have a plan.
Yeah. And so do you have your design set in stone for your clients or no?
Never. I actually, no. So I know. This is going to freak out a few cake makers, I'm quite confident, but I don't actually look in my diary until the day, right? So I go through my diary on like a Wednesday and I'll go, okay, I need to bake that, and that, and that. So I get my baking list, right? And then I start baking Thursday for Friday's cakes, and then on Friday I bake Saturdays, right? So I don't actually look at designs or colours or anything until Thursday afternoon when I go through and get my flower list, and then I go and collect all the flowers, and I don't even have specific flowers. I'm like, I need pink, purple, green and yellow, and then I just go and get flowers. I make fondant while I'm icing the cake. I don't make anything in advance. So I'm really bad at this, but I literally make it up as I go every single time. I have a colour. Sometimes they'll give me a colour scheme. Sometimes they'll give me inspirational pictures, which will be, you know, like photos of balloon arches and other things, so I know the colour scheme that they've gone for. Sometimes they'll send me other cake pictures to go off. but it's pretty rare these days. Mostly it's not as specific as that. So I'm very fly by the seat of your pants, definitely. And I'm very much led by, on Thursday I go and pick up the flowers and I bring them here, but I don't know until I've got the flowers here what tone of purple they're going to be. And I'm going to need to somehow make that work in. Do you know what I mean? So I am kind of glad in a lot of ways that I am very, very flexible in the way that I approach cake, because it means that I'm never kind of stymied by whatever I've got to work with. I'm never like, oh my God, that's not going to work because that's the wrong color because I've had this picture in my head for a week. I don't work like that. I don't have that problem.
And I think the best cakes quite often happen organically like that anyway. Like you can have late plans and then go, yeah, no, it really needs something here, here, and here.
Yes.
And like sometimes too, and I find the more as I go along myself, I don't want to be given other people's cakes to copy. I just want to say, yep, I need a purple butterfly cake. Okay, let me go.
Yes. Quite often they'll send me my cakes though. And I have to say to them, I don't make the same cake twice. So that's a rule I have. It's a very strict rule, never make the same cake twice. That's because I'll get bored. I'm happy to do the same theme. I'm happy to stick with the same colours, but it's going to be different because I like each cake to be quite individual to the person as well. So I'll ask random questions about people. I asked questions about a young girl last week. She was turning, I want to say 18. I think it was 18. And I asked a whole bunch of weird questions to her mum. But what I discovered in the questions was that she wasn't a girly girl and she wanted something really pretty, but she didn't want something that was covered in sparkles or flower, a flower story or whatever. She wanted something that was more elegant and understated and, blues and silvers rather than pinks and purples. But some of that doesn't come out until you start asking those questions that are not even cake related. They're just personality related, so that you can make sure that whatever you produce is going to suit the personality of the person it's for.
That's it.
Important. Yeah.
Yeah, it is important. Okay, so going on a different angle now, do you have who's your ultimate cake hero?
Oh my God, that's so hard. Do you have one? Who's yours?
Oh,
it's tough, isn't it?
I want to say Faye Cahill.
Okay, yeah, good choice.
Like I'm heavily trained, so in the beginning of my sort of cake life, I guess it was all about those roses, like those beautiful roses that she would make, and the fondant, classic fondant.
But really elegant and beautiful. I've got a few. I'm not going to use first names because they've got names that I'm never really quite sure how to pronounce them. So, well, that's true. I'm going to be honest. I'm never sure. I talk about them all the time, but I have a few. I would say that Alchemy, love those cakes with the beautiful, the way that she uses sails, and I don't know, they're just really whimsical and ethereal. I love the feel of them. Leigh Creations, love.
The palette. The colour palettes.
One of my favourite people as well. She's just a genuinely really, really, really lovely person. And I just love that whatever she touches, it looks unique to her. She can pick up piping tips and create the most beautiful flowers out of buttercream. She can use ganache in ways that I've never thought of. And she can also fondant up, with the best of them. And I think that shows just the talent that she is. So I would say that, there are things about your cake heroes or your cake idols. Some cakers you look at their cakes and you go, one day I'm going to try that technique. Or you go, I love this bit that they've done here. And you use that as inspiration. And then there are others that you just look at for the pure joy of looking at their amazing creations, knowing that you're never going to even come close to wanting to attempt that. You would rather just absorb it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Take it to the art.
Yeah. So I follow some cakers purely for the art. Shara, who is in the US, I think. I want to say she's in the US. Love her very much, and she has such a huge imagination. And she shows you the techniques and how she uses them. But I'm never going to do that. You know, creating a frog out of buttercream is not something that I've thought about doing. But I love that she does it, and I love watching that process happen. So there are some that, yeah, you definitely sort of just go. And then there are others like Donna from Elegantly Frosted. You know, her textures are just stunning. And so I will look at her cakes and go, oh, I love the colours she used there, and incorporate that into some of my cakes. So, yeah, I think there's, if you look, you'll never stop looking. And I think that's half the problem with cakes. You could scroll all day.
Oh
my God, I love that one. Oh, my God, look at that. Oh, my God.
Yeah, sure we often do. Like, I have so many to look at. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
On all of my socials. So, what's your biggest cake fail?
Oh, my God. Yeah, it's a hard one to answer, isn't it? Because you sort of don't want to tell anyone that you've really fucked it up. But sometimes we do. Okay, so I've learn't a lot, but way back in the early days, I made a 3-tier wedding cake, and it was a beautiful cake. I piped this really amazing, it was like a Baroque kind of pattern on the outside. It was really stunning. I worked with another local caker who made the topper using photos of the couple, and it was stunning and beautiful. We kept them separate on the journey because the topper was quite weighty. But anyway, didn't know how to transport things in those days, and they had just built a new overpass in Cairns, which was quite a, bit of that. And so I didn't have a fridge either big enough for a 3-tier cake, so it had sat on the bench. It was room temperature. I put it in the boot of the car. Like, I did everything wrong. I put it in the boot of the car. I wasn't the driver, I was a passenger, because it needed 2 of us to lift it. It was a very, very heavy cake. And we drove over the overpass, and I could see in the back, because we put it in the boot but closed the back seats so that you could see all the way through the car. And I could see that the cake was on an angle like this, right? So it was, we had literally put it in the boot, no box, on a slab of wood, a round of wood, just timber. And so it had slid off and done this. So I said to Tara, who was driving, can you just pull over? And she said, yep, well, we're not far up here. We've got to turn off, and I'll turn off there. And I'm like, no, now, like ASAP, don't wait. And she was like, oh my God, because she gets really anxious about cake. So she's bright red, sweating, pulling over on the side of the road, and I went into the back, and you wouldn't even believe, but it was perfectly still okay. It just was sideways like this. So I picked it up, moved the thing from underneath it and put it down, A-okay. And then we drove closer to the place. We didn't know where we were going, and we were driving up the wrong driveway. And it was a space where all the roads were not sealed, so it was fully million potholes, and they were like this. The roads were like, ooh, up the mountain. And we went all the way to the top, nowhere to turn around. And the lady standing there going, what are you talking about? And it was then that we found out that particular street, they had lot numbers and house numbers, but they weren't the same. So we were looking for the house number, and we'd gone up the lot number, same number. So we had to go backwards down the driveway like this. At this point, I had the cake on my lap. I was holding it up like this because we were going so steep backwards. And we got to the venue, and there was nowhere to park because the reception had begun, and it was another one of those steep driveways with nowhere at the top. So we had to park and walk up this huge hill, 2 of us carrying this 3-tier monster cake. Anyway, it all made it there fine, but on the drive home, we discovered I was covered in scratches and bruises from holding the cake on my lap because it was so heavy and I kept moving it everywhere. And we were just a mess. We got home and both of us started crying We were like, oh my God, this is horrible. It was just one of those. We were lucky it turned out okay. I have had cakes fail, like collapse. That's happened. Not a lot, obviously, but occasionally that does happen. But I every single time have been able to fix them or sort something out. And so I don't consider them fails.
Yeah.
I consider them learning curves. This was a fail. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, except for the fact that the cake actually made it and she loved the cake. So all was well in the end. But oh my God. It was
my heart in my throat just listening to that story.
Everything about it was, oh my God. Anyway, it's the one that I remember all the time. I don't remember, you know, the cakes that go wonky or whatever in the early days when you're not sure about supports and you're doing funny things. You don't remember those so much because they're minor little things and you just give them, you know, it. But this I remember. It's stuck indelibly into my brain, never coming out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
oh yeah,
you know, you live and you learn, don't you? Like it's stuff like that happened to us. So it's the only way.
I feel like I learned every single lesson you possibly could in that one instant. Yeah.
Sounds like it. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's so bad. So bad.
Far out. So do you even eat cake?
Okay. No. I do. I taste test flavors. I always do that before I put anything on a plate for someone else to eat. I'm testing it first, trying to make sure that it's going to meet my standards. So I do taste test cake. But if I'm out, I'm obsessed with dessert. I love dessert, but I'm a gooey person. So I'm a sticky date pudding, or do you know, like I like that. I like cakes that if I'm having a cake, I want it to be like quince cake with a honey yogurt, or you know, I like sort of sticky gooey type things, and I love that. But I'm really super frustrated that when you go to a restaurant, even the real fancy ones, the dessert menu is not awesome. There very few places focus any attention on the desserts, and I find that really disheartening and sad. I'm a person who loves my sweets. I would happily eat no entrees just so that I can fit dessert in, and then I get to the dessert menu and it's mud cake, cheesecake, apple pie, and sticky date pudding with caramel sauce out of a bottle.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like I just feel like we've dropped the ball with dessert.
Yeah, you're not being dazzled.
Well, I feel like sometimes you hand over a cake to somebody and it's just my plain vanilla cake. There's nothing fancy about vanilla except that it's delicious, but it's like the bar, right? Every flavor. If you can nail a really good vanilla cake with a really good vanilla buttercream, you can do anything, because that's the flavor that all other flavors are judged off. You know, if you start there, you can do anything. But they leave the people will contact me and say that is the best thing I've ever eaten, and I think I have eaten better stuff. You know, I have. My cake is very good. I will admit that it's delicious. Yes, and I love my cake. But you know, give me a really amazing homemade sticky date pudding with butterscotch sauce and lashings of fresh chantilly cream, and I'm all yours. But where would you find that if you went out?
Yeah, nowhere. You have to go somewhere specifically.
Yeah, nowhere does it. Or if they, or else there are dessert places, you know, where you just go to get ice cream, or there's a cheesecake shop, or there's a whatever type of dessert. But I feel like dessert menus really need some attention. We should make that a thing. Oh, you and I, between the two of us, I reckon we can.
But we'd have to go on a tour of some restaurants, I think, and eat a lot of desserts to judge them.
If you go, next time you go out, have a look at the dessert menu. You don't have to order it. I'm that person that will go to a restaurant and order all of the desserts. I do it every time. So I order everything that's on the dessert menu, and then the whole table, we use that like, you know, how you would normally if you went and had Chinese or Indian, you'll have, you know, all the different things, and then everyone will have a little bit of it. I do that with dessert. That's how I eat dessert. So I'll order the desserts, and the amount of times that I've done that, and then we haven't even eaten them because they weren't worth devouring. And I want to, when your pasta comes out and it's perfectly cooked and it's full of fresh scallops from the ocean, and the smells and the sights and the taste and texture of the fresh pasta, everything is perfect. I want my dessert to be just as good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they never are. Yeah, there you go. That's my one great disappointment in life.
Yeah, right.
Sad about it, because I do love sweet.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So do you have a favourite? And I feel like I might know the answer, but do you have a favourite tool for cake decorating?
I do. I have a few. I love my turntable. I love my egg bay, and I love my palette knives. I feel like I could pretty much get away with. Although I'm quite specific about my what are they called? Like my offset spatula.
Yes.
Yeah. They don't make it anymore, the one that I use, and I'm pretty devastated. I've searched. They don't make it anymore. And I've asked on the question on other cake forums and things, and they'll say, it's my favorite too, and I can't get it either. So I know that I'm not alone. I've even contacted cake supply places to ask them if they consider making one that's similar, but no, the answer's no. They're like, we've already got 400 of them. We don't need to add another one to the pile. I just love it. I've got 4 of them, and they're all starting to need to be tossed. But my palette knives, can't live without my palette knives. I love them.
What I thought you would say palette.
Yeah, definitely. Agbay, everyone who owns one will tell you that how did we function before such a thing existed? And a really good turntable makes the world of difference, which you don't even realize until you get one. And then you all of a sudden you just go, what was I doing with this clunky thing before?
And can I tell you, out of everyone I have spoken to, have interviewed on a Savvy Sesh before, so many people have said turntable, which I'm always quite surprised with the answer, because I'm thinking it's going to be palette knives, or it's going to be some tool that you found somewhere.
Yep.
And yeah, I would say
I'm using the loyal turntable at the moment, and I love it. It's light. I love that, and if I pick the top up, the bottom is still connected, because the old one I had was a I can't remember what brand it was, but they weren't connected because the base was really heavy. But the loyal's so smooth, it just goes like, and you just feel if you get really good equipment, it feels you don't have to concentrate as much on technique. You can have more fun because the tools do half the work for you. If you've got good ones, you know, they're in charge. If you've got a really straight sided scraper tool, then you're going to have straight sides. You know, if you've got the right bits, you're going to be fine. But yeah, palette knives have been the most fun for me for the last probably year and a half, maybe even 2 years. I've had just a world of fun with them, and there's so much more to do with palette knives, which I've just started having a lot more fun layering.
Yep.
With, you know, putting layers of palette strokes on top of layers of palette strokes. I did a wedding cake on the weekend, which I'm about to post sometime this week, and it has a full palette knife. It's just beautiful, and I just love, I don't know, you feel like an artist, you know, you're like, yes, I'm Picasso, I'm doing this thing. You know, for a person who did art at school but not well, it's really nice to have fun with it and pretend that you're, you know, genius or something. I do love knives, indeed.
Okay. And my final question for you is, do you have a favourite cake that you have ever made?
I do. I have 2. I have one that is a world map it's a rainbow, and I hand painted it with buttercream. I painted the buttercream on, and I really, really love it. It goes in a rainbow like a cross. So, but the whole world is there. It was only like a 6-inch little small cake, and I just really love it. And the other one that I love is, it was actually specially made for a little girl's birthday, and she was Hindu, and her dad came here to teach me how to write her name in Hindu so I could put it on the side of the cake. And it had elephants and things from her favourite Bollywood film, and I hand painted or drew with piping tips all of this beautiful mandali little patterns and things on it, and I just loved it. It was a little cube, and those two are my very favourites.
Sounds amazing.
Thanks.
I'll have to stalk your Instagram and have a look at it.
They're a bit old. I'll send them to you.
I'll keep scrolling.
It's easier if I just find them and send them, I think. But yeah, they're my two favourite. I think probably the sentiment behind the two of them, because the world map in the rainbow was for my eldest child's graduation, high school graduation, and they had come out as trans like 2 years before. So, and I wanted it to signify that the world was their oyster, like they could now, the world was theirs. So I made it be a rainbow, and it was the world. And so I think probably that's also why it became one of the ones that stuck in my head. Yeah.
I love it. Love it. So
all the cakes have a story.
What's coming up for you? Anything exciting? Just popping out?
No. I'm working on my t-shirts, Lena.
Are you?
I am. I get asked about them all the time whenever I do my Wednesday waffle. Someone will say, where did you get that t-shirt? My t-shirts actually have my logo on the back. Can you see that?
Yep.
I don't know if you can see it, but I made them. I designed them and came up with the words, because I just love that. I love the thing. I like puns. You love puns. It's why I entered your thing the other day, because that's the one I wanted. I posted it on your Facebook, on your Instagram page. Pick me, I think I wrote. I'll have one, pick me. So I'm working on doing those, making them a little bit more accessible. I don't think I'm going to sell squillions of them. It's certainly not going to let me retire from caking, but it's a bit of fun. It's a bit of fun. So why not? I don't know where to from here, and I think that's what I like. I feel quite content. I feel like I'm at a stage where I have got to a point where I'm just enjoying every day I get to cake, and not really thinking too much about where the journey will take me. And I think that's really nice feeling. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's I guess what every cake decorator can aspire to, is just to be in their zone, doing their thing and making money from it. Really.
Well, that's exactly, yes, absolutely right. Yes. I feel like cakes have given me a lot. So, and I'm just enjoying that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Leigh. I look forward to seeing so many more of your cakes online on your socials. They're just amazing. It's so hard to pick a favorite, but yeah, I probably would say the Starry Nights. And there was another one I saw recently of yours where I think it was grey, and you could tell you had palette knife flowers on in a maroon type color. That was beautiful. I loved that one. I love them all, but yeah, that one really stood out.
Excellent. Oh, see, this is what I love about cake. You can always find something to like in every cake that anybody has ever made.
That's it.
Yeah.
We will have to do a t-shirt swap. Let me know when you get them in.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome. How good would that be? I'd totally wear t-shirts proudly. I've got your stickers all over my kitchen.
Yes.
Did you know?
Yes.
No, I'm looking at one right now. It says Flower Girl. There's one there that just said, they're literally all over the place. I love them.
Yeah.
Have a good time. Yeah. Love it. Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much for the chat today. It's been really good to talk to you and meet you online finally properly. So yeah, thank you. And we'll talk soon.
Yes, absolutely. See you later. Thanks for having me. Bye.